allowing ourselves to reconnect with our bodies, with our hearts. That is the essence of life. It's truly what makes being human so spectacular, is our ability to not just survive, but to thrive.
Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Welcome back to the show, friend. My new best friend, Katelyn, is with me today, and we are here to share a topic about personal growth. And sometimes we are so busy just getting through today. Just how do I make it with all the things I still have to do? And it's already late in the afternoon or early in the morning, and you're just like, is there any time for personal growth? How can I put me on my to-do list? How can I put me back on the priority list that I actually get time for myself? And do you know how critical this is for our mental health? There's this one, I've mentioned it a couple times, but I was talking to a young gentleman once that was just like, oh, my mom was always so crabby for so long. And then she decided that she was coming home from work and she was going to play the piano for 15 minutes. And did you say my mom and the whole family's life changed? And it wasn't a long change in her life. It wasn't a big thing. But she found one thing that she could do that balanced out that mental wellness where she could do it. And Katelyn does this for people all the time. And so we're going to have Katelyn help me and you figure out how we can get some personal growth while we're running so fast in all directions. The information about Katelyn is in the show notes. So Katelyn, help me. How do I get me back on the list of priorities in my life?
Oh my gosh, Laura, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you today. And, gosh, I wish I had a magic wand and I could help you, friend, listener, to arrive at that, quick and easy way to do the work. But as we all know, this isn't a magical universe, right? We actually have to be the change. We have to be the ones who put ourselves first in order for that to be our personal reality. So even in those days when it feels just incredibly overwhelming and like you have no time, I want to just invite you, even though this might seem trivial, it might seem like it could never really make a difference. I want to invite you to actually focus on the energetic center of your heart. Laura, have you ever tried this?
Well, I think so, but let's try it. How do I focus on the energetic part of my house? How do I even find it?
Well, one idea is to take your hand, if you can do so safely, and put it over your heart.
Does it matter if it's my right hand or my left hand? Or is it just one that's convenient?
Not really. It doesn't matter which hand it is, but most people, because our heart is sort of over to the left, most people intuitively and instinctively put their right hand up to their heart. I think we were also taught to do that in school, for at least those of us raised here in the US in public school systems, right? To put your right hand on your heart as you're maybe saying the anthem or whatever the case may be. So yeah, sometimes placing a hand on the heart allows us to connect more fully with that space. But there's something alchemical, something mystical, and something transcendental about the information that is generated from the heart. And today's conversation, more than anything, should be centered on that. Because those of us who are overwhelmed and stressed and burdened by the realities of our daily life often exist in the area associated with our brain, right? Or the thinking mind. And so when we're able to make that shift, which the mystical traditions talk about, the longest journey man ever takes is from the head to the heart.
Yes.
Right? When we're able to make that shift, from our thinking minds into our sensing and feeling hearts, an entire universe opens up to us. And that's the kind of work that we do every day and that I love to support women in accessing for their own self.
So do you think anybody could find that energy by just putting their hand on their heart?
Absolutely.
What do I search for? What do I want to feel?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, a technique that I really love to teach is actually comes to us from the Heart Math Institute, who has been conducting research on what's called heart brain coherence for over 30 years. And this technique is very simple. It's 3 steps. It's called focus, activate, radiate. So what we want to do is in a comfortable seated position, or you can even do it, you could do it seated at your desk, at work. You could do it in the car while you're driving. If you're driving, please keep your eyes open. Don't close them. But what we do is we close our eyes or we just focus with the energy that we normally associate with our thinking mind. We want to bring that visually in our inner imaginal space into the heart. So you want to focus on the heart. And then step 2 is to activate a life-affirming or positive emotional state. So this could be something like joy, gratitude, appreciation, awe, or even love. And so for people who are like, well, oh my gosh, I'm not sure what that feels like. I want to challenge you and say, actually, I imagine that you do. You may not intuitively connect it with your own body and your own heart yet, but certainly there's got to be some memory or some experience in your life or some story that you have that brings you joy, right? Or that brings you an experience of deep appreciation and gratitude. So that's what we want to do. We want to activate that emotional state. And then we want to begin to, with our mind's eye, right? Again, as we're focused on the area associated with our heart, we're activating this positive or life-affirming emotional state. We want to begin to allow that emotion to radiate outwards from our heart through every other cell in our body. And this technique has been demonstrated empirically to completely shift our biofield. It triggers a cascading effect of over 5,000 neurochemical and neurophysiological changes in the body mind, allowing us to access deeper states of tranquility, inner peace, and serenity.
So if I was to attempt to do this in a meeting, I'm starting to feel stressed. My brain's going too many miles an hour and I just need to breathe. But I don't want everybody looking at me because I'm all of a sudden grasping my heart and wondering if I'm dying. So is there a way to subtly do it? Could I put it like,
oh my gosh,
towards me?
This is my favorite covert activity to do before I go into a stressful meeting. I actually just got back from a conference in Nashville on health evolution with a bunch of corporate CEOs in healthcare, the healthcare industry. And I'll be honest, as a mental health practitioner, as somebody who's, a little bit more on the practice side of things, I felt like a fish out of water in these rooms, right? With these people who have these high-powered corporate executive jobs. But my favorite covert activity to teach these folks is actually the one that I just described, because it doesn't have to be something that you do outwardly. It's all about creating that inner environment that is supportive of our own vitality, of our own creativity, of our clarity, and our purpose. So when you're able to begin to practice this, what actually happens is you're resetting your distress tolerance, right? So you'll begin to notice as you do this more and more regularly, as you begin to practice, that things that used to really stress you out, maybe it's a particular coworker or a type of situation that you run into socially out in the world with your family, you'll begin to notice that your relationship to those circumstances changes. And you'll begin to draw in experiences that actually align with this version of yourself that is more present, that is more capable, and more clear in how she communicates about her needs and her desires and her hopes.
So covertly, I would just more focus on my heart space instead of touch it.
Mm-hmm.
And as I breathe, maybe breathe up the energy of my heart. And when I breathe in, no, I guess when I breathe in, I could breathe in the energy of my heart. And then when I exhale, I could let go of that stress that's been creeping up.
Yeah.
So
Because the most important thing is actually the cultivation of the loving or joyous feeling. It's actually the research shows that it is that life affirming affective or emotional state which shifts the neurophysiology and the neurochemistry of the brain, right? And it actually changes our thoughts as well in the mind. So what you want to do is, yes, you can focus on the heart and breathe naturally, breathe in a way, maybe a little bit deeper, a little bit slower than you might otherwise. But the most important part is to bring to mind or an experience of an emotional state that is supportive and regenerative. And then, if you're really getting freaky with it, you can imagine that positive energy, that joy, that gratitude, that deep appreciation. You can imagine it radiating not only throughout your own body, but into the entire room. Sometimes I like to imagine my heart's energy radiating into the universe, surrounding the entire planet. And, that's just kind of a fun and clever way to shift from stress into what's called coherence, which I'm happy to talk about if you'd like me to.
I think that sounds wonderful. How about if we take a break, get a word from our sponsor, and come back and let's talk about this? So I think, Katelyn, we'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Lara Jane Coaching. You know you're ready to silence your inner bully voice. Let Lara Jane support you with coaching. To schedule an introduction call, go to larajanelayton.com.
So, coherence, right? Actually, Laura, let me ask you a question, and we can ask it of the listener as well. What words, synonyms, if you will, might come to mind when I share the word coherence? There's no right or wrong answer. Just think about it. And what's one word that might pop into your mind?
The one that did was synergy. And I was trying to overthink it. How does that fit?
Totally. Synergy is a great word. Another word that often comes to people's mind is harmony, right? Or peace or serenity. So coherence, depending on who's talking about it, has different meanings, but I'll try and explain a little bit about it. Obviously, in literature, coherence refers to kind of like the story having a cohesive flow and coherent narrative, right? It's comprehensive.
It all flows.
Unified, right? It all flows together. And then in physics, on the complete other side, it refers to a correlation in electromagnetic field resonances. But in the sense that we're referring to it here, and again, this all does tie together, I promise, it refers to the synchronized entrainment of three things: heart rate variability, blood pressure, and respiration. So people are often aware that like HRV is an indicator of autonomic nervous system functioning. It's supportive. It's supportive of cognitive functioning and emotional regulation. Generally speaking, a higher HRV is better than a lower one. I was actually just reading an article today that was talking about how menopause can actually impact HRV and lower HRV. So when we talk about like promoting our own health, these coherence exercises, which are designed to support an increase in HRV, can actually really be beneficial in preventing the onset of more serious disease. So it is something that is actually like really good for you, not just, this abstract concept.
And you mentioned, I think at the beginning, HRV is heart rate variable?
Heart rate variability.
Okay.
The variability in beats per minute over a duration of time. And coherence is actually a practice. right? Of connecting these three aspects, our breath, our blood pressure, and our heart rate variability. And the quickest way to do that is the technique we talked about before the break, right? So that focus, activate, radiate, where you're connected to the energetic center of the heart and practicing those positive emotional states from the inside out, not just from the mind, but in a sensing, feeling way, right? And in so doing, you're shifting your physiology into more harmonious or sign like, if you want to talk about waves, right? Sign like, predictable variability in your heart rate, right? And this is done in relationship to your breathing. So as you do this practice, as you begin to do this more regularly, and again, you can just do it for 30 seconds, you can do it for a minute, you can go crazy and do it for 20 minutes, whatever floats your boat or works with your schedule. I do it often like when I'm waiting to pick up my son, right? When I'm waiting there for him to leave school, I'll just stand and breathe and connect to my heart and my joy and imagine how excited I'm going to be when, he comes out the door. And, sometimes he's in a sour mood, but that's okay because, I'm his mom and it's my responsibility to be, pleasant and, whatever, like connected to myself so that I can be there for whatever his personal reality is, right? But this is it's a way to shift out of, whatever maybe you take home from work, right? It's a really nice way, a nice practice that can really be supportive of us being at our best for our families and responding to them from a place of connection and from a place of, inner peace rather than with irritability or with stress or with fatigue, right? Because we've all had it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a saint. Like certainly I too struggle, right? In various points in time in my life. But with this practice specifically of heart-centered awareness and presence, I've really radically transformed my life to be one where I feel much more capable of responding to whatever the adversity is that presents itself.
So if I'm a person that has basically turned off my emotions, I got to get through life. I don't have time to feel all this stuff that's going on. And I've kind of lost that connection to my heart.
Yeah.
How do I'm assuming that the first time I try this, it's not going to be so easy. But if I keep doing it, will I eventually start feeling my emotions again?
That's a really great question. And I'm so glad that you asked it. One of the things that they talk about, that we talk about a lot in my field is that numbing ourselves to certain emotions doesn't work, right? We can't numb ourselves to certain emotions and not numb ourselves to all emotions. And so sometimes there can be a fear associated with, well, if I allow myself to connect to my joy, might I also be opening a door to this well of sadness or this, pool of rage that I'm aware of, but I really just am so scared that if I tap into it, that it'll be overwhelming. So again, I want to encourage you and the listener to just understand that it's not an all or nothing, right? You can begin to practice this little by little in ways that feel safe and secure for you, but that don't necessarily lead to this overwhelming all or nothing. Now the walls that I've built have crumbled and I feel everything, right? That's the fear talking. It's not necessarily the reality. But allowing ourselves to reconnect with our bodies, with our hearts, right? Like that is the essence of life. It's truly what makes being human so spectacular is our ability to not just survive, but to thrive. And so in whatever way you feel capable, right? Even if it's in a private moment, right? When you're showering, you have your 15 minutes to shower and get ready for the day, right? What if you did that then just for a little short while? What if you practiced being grateful for these 15 minutes, right? That I have to myself to, you know, freshen up and put on my best face to go and make breakfast, right? Like these are all really pragmatic and practical ways in which we can little by little reestablish that connection to the parts of ourselves that we've rejected, right? The parts of ourselves that we're not fully comfortable embracing and embodying.
I love the idea of doing it with your shower or doing it with something you're already doing, because now you're not having to find no time. It's just adding a thought process to something that already's going on.
Totally. And I would add to that, it's about adding a heart process, right? We don't need more thinking, we need more heart.
It is great to have that joy in your heart. But even the most happiest person I know has their ups and downs. And what I want people to remember is you're safe. The ups and downs are here.
Yeah.
They happen. But as long as you feel safe being you in any of the situations, I think we can make it through. I remember as a kid being made fun of if you cried. So you turn that off. You know, it's like, hey, I'll never be made fun of for crying again. I do not cry. And then all of a sudden you get older and you learn that it's not a bad thing. And I was a bit envious of my friends that could feel that, you know, that why does that come out? You know, and then it's like joyous when you finally learn to cry again, and not like,
Oh my God,
don't, that's, it doesn't have to be. It's like nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to be, but it is when I kind of feel the most in my heart when it's just pouring out with tears. And
oh, totally.
it's just like, and it's not, oh, poor, pitiful me. It's what a joyous life and how wonderful this is. It's those tears.
These practice, that's exactly right. Those tears where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm alive right now, right? And what a blessing, what a miracle it is that I can feel and I can be here and hold myself through this, right? And especially for those of us who weren't modeled this when we were young, or, you know, didn't have spaces where it was okay for us to really be authentically ourselves in relationship to our feelings, this can feel a little bit threatening. But that's why I suggest, you know, it's not a bypass, right? We're not saying that as you begin to cultivate positive or life affirming emotions, you're not going to feel the sad ones. Of course you are, right? But, or the angry ones. But what happens over time as you continue this practice is you begin to have greater flexibility and acceptance of the fullness of the human experience, which includes the rainbow of emotional experiences that we have in any given moment, day, week, year, or lifetime, right? And so all of this is designed to support us in being more adaptive, being more resilient, and being more capable of showing up for all of that, right? Not just the parts that we, you know, prescribe as okay or safe to feel in certain contexts. And I know a lot of listeners, or hopefully you can understand and resonate with that, like, especially when we have these kind of more traditional jobs, or you know, we go to work and there's like a way in which we show up at work, right? We're maybe not showing up as our whole self there, right? That can really, over time, be really impact us on a psychological and emotional level. And it can lead to burnout, right? And fatigue, and just but it's a function of the fact that we're not able to express who we truly are. And in so doing, then you can, you know, if you allow yourself to be more fully who you are, little by little, right? Then you'll find naturally that it invites others to be more fully who they are, right? You kind of give permission by being your most radical and authentic self. You give permission to others to do the same. And then what we find is that there's so much more commonality and things that join us than separate us. And ultimately, I think that's really important right now in our families, in our communities, and in our country, to just remember that we all share more in common than we do in apart or in difference.
And that is so beautiful to think, because there is a lot of contention in the world, and you're not exactly like me, so I'm afraid of you.
Right.
And when we look for differences, that's what we find.
Of course.
But if we can look for similarities, you're going to connect with way more people and feel safe in so many more situations.
Yeah, 100%.
So, Katelyn, I really enjoyed the conversation, and I really like the idea. You mentioned something, the focus, the activate, and the radiate when we're into that heart state. And it makes the word far. But it says this cute little acronym, and when you feel that joy and that love, you're radiating so much further out into the universe than you do when you're holding it in. So it's kind of
You totally get it, Laura. That's exactly right. Yes.
It's a fun little acronym that you can make with this. So, learning to focus into our heart space, learning to turn it on, allow it to feel, and then let it shine.
Yeah.
So
shine a light so bright that even, that everyone can see it. That's my wish.
Or at least the next person over can, and then they can shine the next person and the next person.
Yes.
And we can find a lot more joy, and we can find a lot more heart-centered people.
Yes.
So why don't you share with us how to get a hold of you, a little bit about what you do, and what is that one thing we're going to do this week?
Oh, okay. Well, anybody who is on social media, you can find me either on Facebook or Instagram at Dr. Katelyn Lehman. I'm the founder of a wellness facility here based in Los Angeles, California, called Quantum Clinic. You can read about our website on our website, quantumclinic.com. And if you're ever traveling for work in the LA area, or you're here locally, I invite you to please come by, book a service, and experience the transformation that's possible here. And the one thing that I hope you, my dear friend, do this week is to focus on your heart, activate that life-affirming or positive emotional state, and then just let it shine, radiate it outward into the world. Let yourself really be seen, even if it's just for a moment.
I love it. Thank you so much, Katelyn. This has been beautiful. Friend, I am not a licensed medical or mental professional, just here for entertainment. And sometimes I get to have those that are with me on the show. So thank you, Katelyn, for joining us. Please take a moment, rate the show, go out to iTunes, give us a rating and a review. That would be so helpful for us being able to reach even more people with these heart-centered messages. So thank you, Katelyn, for joining, and stay tuned for the next episode.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Laura Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss the next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.